I was born about 50 years ago. I would not be allowed to speak in front of all of you today. If I did speak, I would be disowned, outcasted. What if I told you that not very long ago, half the population was expected to stay quiet? Not because they aren't smart, and not because they did not care, but simply because of tradition? What if I told you that women were once forbidden from voting, from going to university, even from dreaming about a life outside their homes? For example, in China, women's feet are kept bound and small, supposedly because it was seen as beautiful. But really, it limited women's movement. It was ridiculous. It sounds impossible, but it happened. My name is Anika. I am 11 years old from YCIS Pudo. And today, I want to tell you about someone that makes me believe if the world is really unfair, then you got to make it fair. Her name is Emmeline Pankhurst. She was a British woman in 1903 who was arrested, force-fed in prison, and beaten simply for saying women should vote. I learned about her in a book I checked out in our library. I love the people I meet through books, whose stories inspired me. But Emmeline Pankhurst was special. She did not just disagree with history, she changed it. In 1903, she started a move and fight for women's right to vote. She and other women marched into the streets. They were arrested. They went on hunger strikes. They were treated unfairly and harshly. But they did not give up. And because they did not give up, women in the UK were finally allowed to vote in 1918 and gained equal voting rights in 2028. That happened because someone refused to stay silent. Now you might think, that was a long time ago. Things are different now. And yes, they are. Here in China, almost 100% of girls attend primary school today. In fact, girls made up 50% of university students in China. That is more than in the past. Women also made up about 26% of university students in China. Women also made up about 26% of National People's Congress, China's highest legislative body. But women only still hold about one quarter of those seats. And even though women are highly educated, women's workforce participation in China is about 55 to 60% lower than men's. Around the world, including in China, women on average earn less than men's for similar work. So yes, we have moved forward, but we are not finished. Around the world, millions of girls still denied education. Even here, stereotypes still exist. Sometimes it's comments like, boys are naturally better in math, but a 2020 study competition of 50 countries found zero difference in average math ability between boys and girls. So that's just an excuse. Sometimes it's calling confident girls bossy. But a study by Georgetown University found the same behavior seen as leadership in boys, but bossiness in girls. The label changed, but the behavior is the same. I have heard things like that before. Maybe you have too. When boys speak loudly, they are called leaders. But when girls do the same, they're sometimes told to be quieter. Why? Equality doesn't mean girls are better than boys. It means everyone gets the same chance to learn, to lead, to try, to fail, and to dream. Emmeline Pankhurst lit the fire more than 100 years ago, but she wasn't alone. There was Song Qingling in China, who fought for women's rights here. There was Malala in Pakistan. There were millions of unnamed girls who refused to stay silent. And that fire reached all the way to girls like me standing here in Shanghai today, able to speak freely. But the fire does not keep burning by itself. It needs us. We may not need to chain ourselves to buildings, but we do need to raise our hand. We do need to question stereotypes. We do need to support each other, boys and girls together. Because progress doesn't only happen in governments. It happens in classrooms. It happens in families. It happens when we decide that girl is not a limitation. It's just a word. One day, someone might look back at our generation and ask, when equality still wasn't complete, what did they do? Let's make sure the answer is we spoke, we stood up, and we refused to stay silent. Thank you. Girls rock!